Hello. In this film, five people who are all living with dementia in their own homes discuss the importance of creativity in their lives, especially during the period of the pandemic. They discuss their role as craftivists and they reflect on what care homes can and should do to encourage creativity.
I think for me, the most important thing is having a purpose in life. And we all need a purpose in life. And when we had our diagnosis and lost our jobs, a lot of us lost our purpose. And I think for me, arts gives me a purpose and gives me something that I can enjoy, I look forward to. And I think the big thing for us is that you can learn new things when you have dementia. Because people say, oh, you've got dementia, you can't learn new things. Well, we've all proved that to be a load of bunkum, and we can learn new things. I'm doing this project where it's called Wellbeing in the Woods. And I go into the woods once a week and we make things and we have fires and all sorts of things like that. And it's about learning new skills. And I've learned new skills through George with your woods crafting and Francis with the watercolour and Gail with the cards. You know, everybody has something to contribute. So, yeah, it's all about having a purpose. And I think that it would give the people in the care homes a purpose. It would give them enjoyment and it would, release the endorphins and make them feel better.
Yes, I totally agree, Chris. For me, and I'm only speaking about what it's happened through COVID for me personally, I was using the many crafting sessions so that it would lift my mood. So I wanted to learn many different new skills. I needed something to get me going, if you like. So and it depended on my mood what I would do. Sometimes it would be crochet. So I could sit and just do that with a cup of tea. Other times I wanted to lose myself in watercolors, So it was and I then realized through COVID for me personally, because of my not being able to get out and because my mobility is going and my memory is going and things like that, that I have now created a safe space where it doesn't matter, because I live in Scotland, what the weather is. I've got this I always call it's like a bus stop, and I can go in there, whatever craft or creative thing I'm deciding to do, and I can go in there in spite of the weather, and no matter, and I'm hoping that my support worker who comes in, she's fully with me and she can tell and she'll say to me, Agnes, how about we take our cup of tea and go up in we're calling it Yogi's Den, because I do yoga, although it's not big enough for yoga. How about going up to Yogi's Den and we just lose ourselves in the moment? It's a tool. It's almost like a prescriptive medicine, and I'm into trying to find out about the creative writing now, so I can combine a lot of what I'm learning.
Art, as you know, is the thing that does it for me. I've never been terribly good at it, but what I do get from it is a fantastic amount of pleasure. And I sort of, what I most enjoy about it really is passing the skill set on to other people. And when we did do the work in the care home, I did the one called The Little Book of Me. And it was, first of all, we made a small book, which Gail instructed us how to do, because it's a paper fold and some scissors are involved, and I couldn't remember how to do it, but she got the trick of doing it. And then it was a matter of filling this little tiny book. It's only, it's smaller than that card, really. It's tiny. And what you had was lots of pages, so you could write your name on the front and illustrate it as you liked. That took a moment or two. And then we went inside and started asking a number of questions from people. And what it did in the care home was it evoked conversation between people who had seen each other, obviously, but who'd never really had a conversation. And suddenly they're discussing things. It was the most heartwarming thing. Apparently, they told us afterwards that people had gone out from the session and were showing their little books proudly to other people who were all saying, can we do that? Can we do that? So you could see how that one simple activity just made such a difference to people. And we found out, not only did we find out, but the carers, the people who look after those people, found out things about them that they had never, ever known. And for me, that was the true importance of it. It evoked a much greater feeling of looking after real people and what they were interested in. And I think that probably most of the sessions we did had a very similar effect. And that for me is the nub of it. And that's why I'm so keen to help pursue this if we can. And as for me, what would I like? Well, if I have to go into a care home, whether or not I can still do it, the one thing I do want is all my arts and crafts stuff. I'm not good at cards. I'm not good at making much stuff, but I do love my painting and my drawing. It takes me to another place. And I think it's very good for those of us with dementia to be in that other place because you can forget everything else. And that's what it's all about for me.
Francis, what you said just reminded me of something. When I was working with the care inspector, going into homes and various things, one of the big, I'm going to say, issues that a lot of the staff had was people living with dementia, their sleep patterns and getting up and through the night, you know. And I remember saying to one of the staff, well, you know, say if it was me and I was one of your clients, just don't annoy me. Find a space, give me something to draw or sketch or glitter with or colouring in book or something. And I would sit there for a while until I was ready to go back to bed. I'm not doing any harm to anybody just because you think I should be sleeping if I'm not sleeping, even now at home. And instead of being anxious, you know, and concerned about it, I just get my painting out and I just draw something silly. It doesn't need to mean anything to anybody else. It just needs to give me enjoyment and let me go into that space.
I think another important thing, and I agree with everything everybody else has said, is the giving of time. And I think that the people in the care homes have so much time on their hands, and yet the staff don't always have the time to perhaps engage in conversation and that. And we all know how stressed the care home staff are. So they need something that's built into their day to allow people to do some crafts and take that time out.
Well, I mean, when I was doing the poem, I asked questions like this, but they were very much based on, you know, former lives and childhood and stuff, and of course, you know, classic reminiscence, and you get stuff out of them, and just like others said, the staff said they found out things they'd never thought of, and now they've got things to talk about. They could have, but they hadn't. But so I think it's really useful for everybody.
I think it engages your brain more. We can all sit down and watch a television, but not really see what we're watching and take it in, if that makes sense. But when you're doing any form of craft, you're concentrating more, you're understanding processes, following processes, and at the end, you get something really nice. And also, bearing in mind as well, some of the things we're doing, it's a form of exercise. People are using their hands, they're exercising their brains, they're expressing themselves, whereas maybe they're not used to talking and expressing themselves. So I think it does an awful lot of things that a lot of the other substitutes, like watching television, it might be pleasant, but it's not satisfaction. And you get something at the end of it, which is nice to look at, nice to keep. And you've done that. You've made that.
there comes a time when possibly you can't ride a bike and I can't watch television. So art for me, it's the way it makes me feel. We're making fairy houses with Gail, and mine's, I mean, and the laughter, my dog joined in, and the laughter that we had. And that's what it is. And that was over my mistake, you know. So, and my mistake is proudly sitting in my garden. And every time I look at it, it brings great memories of a great time. And I refuse for it to go anywhere. So sometimes it's not the prettiest things that bring you the best, you know, it's what you got out of the process.
It never bothers me because, you know, if you expect to do something perfect in any sort of part of your life and get it right first time, well, I mean, if you can do that, I'd like to be you.
It's companionship as well, isn't it?
Yes, it's bringing, and that's what Francis said as well. It's almost bringing strangers into together using a medium, and you're getting to know one another.
I always feel more creative when somebody is alongside me or showing me or motivating me. And I think that's because, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that feels this, is that it's lack of confidence and feeling that you won't be able to do it. But when you're doing it with other people and being shown, I think, oh, yes, I can do this. So it's often I thought, yeah, I'm going to get my paints out and I'm going to draw, I'm going to do, but I don't actually do it. And it's because if I had somebody sat next to me doing it with me, I would do it and I would really enjoy it.
I'll give you a tip. You may already have done this, but I won't say I taught myself. I learned how to, well, one way of painting a rose by just using a YouTube film. 6 minutes, watching someone do it, go through it 2 or 3 times, stop it here and there, and then just I tried a few times, and then I eventually got it. And then you think, why the hell didn't I think of that earlier? And it's a wonderful feeling, and they're all there.
You can pause them, you can rewind them, but again, it's somebody showing you the processes.
Yes, I agree, Chris, what you're saying. I have trouble motivating myself to get this stuff together. So I often leave because I'm lucky I live alone, so I often leave my crafty things out, maybe in my living room table. And you know, there's no drama to get it all together. I often go on YouTube and sometimes not do, but just watch people. It's about the enjoyment of the participation. And if it turns out a mess, but everybody's having fun, go with the flow.
The speed at which you speak as well. So I think it's about the way that the delivery is made by the pace at which you speak, giving people the time to process what you've just said before moving on to the next point.
When I'm outside, it's just my most creative. I write poetry as I walk along, which I've forgotten by the time I get home. I can't stop looking and staring at every detail of everything, trying to remember it so I can get it down onto paper or canvas when I get home. So when do I feel inspired to paint? Probably nearly all the time, but without the capacity to follow through on that. So if I'm very muddled up. And I've also discovered that I'm no good when I've got pressure. Very, very often start those sort of sessions with poetry, because that brings the outdoors back in for people. Just shut your eyes and listen. Everybody thinks I'm a bit bonkers when I do it, but once they get the feel for it, suddenly the images that are evoked by the poem come out onto the paper and get them started.
Just doing some little hand exercises, sitting down, you know, just by stretching up or stretching out. And I did the clay craft thing with leaves. So you can get your outdoor activity by going and getting the leaves from the trees and picking the leaves. And then once you've got them, you think, well, I'm going to be doing something with these. So, you know, it's all about bringing everything together to form one really brilliant experience.
I think you can bring the outdoors in. Not everybody can get outdoors, you know, for whatever reason, but you can bring, if you're going to talk about the beach, then bring sand and some beach shells and what have you in, so people can sensory touch, feel, tell their stories of when they were at the beach. Sometimes when I've been nursing or something like that, I've done that because someone has suggested, you know, they missed something outside, and I've picked wee bits off the trees or leaves and what have you, and then took them out the pip and said, look what I saw when I was coming into work today, and just showing them, and they touch it and smell it. So it's not all about getting out. Don't see it as a barrier, George. I feel I'm wanting to say that's an excuse. Find workarounds and bring outside in.
In Powys, my area, the libraries have on loan beach scenes, mountain scenes, and so on, which can be borrowed.
Up at my local orthopedic hospital, and they've modelled it on another hospital. There's something called Horatio's Garden, and they've made a sensory garden. Because so many people are flat on their backs in plaster or whatever for months on end.
Yeah.
So they can be pushed out and they can be out there in the sunshine. They can smell, they can touch, etc., etc. Fantastic experience.
You know, we've done dementia diaries. There's a bird song and things like that.
Yeah.
And I've done videos of a sunrise. You know, in certain situations when people are actually doing their bits, why not play the bird sound in the background? Or share your screen with a sunrise or something like that.
Yeah.
So bring those types of things in as well.
Because I did this last night, and I am particularly proud of it.
That is spectacular.
Wow.
I'm so proud of it that I couldn't sleep last night.
I did this. It's cross stitch, and it took me a year to do it. I used to love doing cross stitch, and I'd like to do it again, but obviously not something as complex as that.
I think what I'm most proud of is, and it was one of the first things that I done, right? And when just at the beginning of lockdown, and I had lost the ability, I thought, to crochet. I used to crochet, and but it wasn't. It was a lot of the things you said, Chris, the confidence and all of that, and just so. And then I discovered YouTube, George. So using a combination of all of them, I done a prem baby blanket, booties, and a wee hat.
Oh,
right. And the reason
Wow.
why I'm very proud of that is my daughter was a prem baby, and there was a call out saying the special baby units were looking for these things for their units. The babies really needed them. So it was like giving back. So dementia didn't take away from me. You know, I hadn't lost that skill. I just needed to find something to assist me to be able to bring it back again. And that started my journey of what else could I do? I can look at that and say, how wonderful. I had the skill, and I'm celebrating that skill. I rediscovered it 14 years after a diagnosis of dementia. You can do it, maybe not as good as that, but I can still do some things. And I might need help with someone sitting at me, but there is workaround. Don't ever give up.
do you feel a sense of achievement as well?
Do you know, there's achievement, but it's even more than achievement. It makes me emotional, and it brings back, evokes lots of different memories, you know, just that. And it's lovely to touch. and I can see the unit and the babies and all the wee babies. Some survive, some. The memories and it just evokes beautiful memories for me, and I think that's what we might need to put in. If in care home settings, something we do, it might evoke memories where people are tearful, and it's not always sad tears, but it is tears and someone just to hold their hand.
To me as well, it's about the giving back.
Yes.
Because I like doing things for other people as opposed to doing things for myself. So if I make something, then we painted the pebbles with the poppies on for Remembrance Day, and then we put them on the beach, and it was a lovely sense of the fact that I did them, but it was a deeper emotional sense that I could give them away and give something back and give pleasure to somebody else from something that I've done.
And I think too, adding on to that is, you know, the little labels that said made by a person living with dementia, that makes me feel so proud, so whatever. See, we can do it, you know, don't write us off, you know. And that's what I feel. Don't, just because you're in a care home, just because you're losing skills and what have you, do not write us off.
Oh, I'm just getting you this. This is what I'm proudest of that I did. Well, it's a tremendous amount of drawing. And I spent hours doing it, and I drew the frame round. And the picture in the very middle is of Castle Koch. And the trees all around it were a mixture of sort of influences, such as William Morris. And I mean, it took me days. There's a lot of it that's not right, but I'm very proud of that. It made me feel so good.
I love that word, joyful. That's what I want. I want to feel joy.
Well, I've got my carvings, about, I don't know, 15 or 20 of them, on the windowsill where I sit, not today, but normally, so I can look at them. And that gives me great pleasure. Yeah. And there aren't that many that I did that didn't work. There are a few, if only because I didn't set myself too difficult a task in the first place. But yeah, it gives me tremendous satisfaction. And
you've given a lot of your crafty stuff away as well, George. So you've passed that joy on to other people.
The pleasure for me is being able to, when you say get your favourite painting out, flick through. I keep an awful lot of sketchbooks, and sometimes I just feel like looking through them to see what I have done in the past. So I have got maybe 10 or 12 very big ones. They're A3 size. I very, very rarely put them up. I much prefer now to share the skills with other people.
And I love people sharing their skills and how they evolve, because it encourages you, you know, and sparks something in you, and you think, well, I'll never make it that good, but I could try, you know.
If I'm honest, my conservatory has got all my art stuff in it. When I was a kid and doing things and drawing and things, my father used to say, oh, you're bloody useless, you can't do that. And that's always been in my mind. So Francis has given me that encouragement to think, yes, I can try it.
You're creating something, it doesn't matter what the medium is, gathering the ingredients together, and then you're creating something that's joyful, you know, and brings pleasure. But I think it's all in the eye of the beholder and the people who are doing it. And if we're talking about care homes, etc., it's creating that space so that people can get as much, a safe space, so that they can get as much out of it as they can, you know, and giving them a purpose.
Think of words that describe or that you associate with any sort of creativity or art or whatever.
Relaxing, soothing.
Enjoyment, fulfillment, sense of purpose, a sense of achievement.
What colour would you associate with being creative?
The rainbow.
I will say yellow.
I like Agnes's rainbow.
What noise would you associate with being creative?
Silence.
I love the sound of the sea.
Quiet background.
Yeah.
Not silence, quiet background.
Just relaxing music. And that may be the sound of rain falling, it may be the sound of the wind in the trees.
So sometimes if I'm painting something or doing something art or creative, it sparks that joyful moment.
Yeah, yeah.
And it brings it back.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
And going back to the laughter is infectious. So if you start laughing or somebody starts laughing, it's infectious and it spreads around, doesn't it?
I mean, it's the whole thing of the colours swirling in one's mind that's what keeps me awake. I can't wait get back to my paint box and try to put them down on paper with increasing lack of success these days. It does stop me. It's the feeling of well-being, I think, is the most important part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think also it breeds resilience. You know, the sense of, you know, sort of stamina and sticking at something and achieving something. And the poem does that.
Mm.
I think for me as well, it's about you know, you can't learn new things when you have dementia. And we're saying actually you can, and we've all learned new things, art being one of them.
I'd say there's 3 E's, if you like. One is creativity for me is a way of expressing myself. Secondly, it helps my self-esteem. And thirdly, it's a form of escapism. So that's my starter really with creativity. And then taking that a bit further, what it certainly does for me is it builds resilience. You know, I've mentioned this before because I find that through either writing or now this new wonderful thing called watercolor painting, I find it really boosts my ability to deal with other issues in life, makes me much more resilient and much more self-soothing, I guess, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good phrase, yeah.
It opens my eyes to things. It's completely transformed the way I see the world in which I live. I now see it through creativity. And finally, it enables me to be more what I used to be, which is a patient person. You know, I've since dementia, I've become impatient, I think. And you know, at times jump in and you know, I'm not always able to hold myself back, which I always used to. So it does enable me to be much more patient.
I've always said to the children, I don't care where you stick me, you know, when it all goes horribly wrong. I don't really mind where you stick me because I probably won't really know where I am. But so long as you leave me with a pen or a paintbrush in my hand, you know, I'll be fine. As long as I can still do that.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's not 3 words. It just is everything to me.
I've also written down that it makes me feel less anxious because anxiety is one thing that gets to me since I've had dementia, and I used to be really placid before. And I put about getting lost in what you're doing, whatever art that might be, getting lost and not looking at a watch, because I think our lives so often we've had to time keep and look at what we're doing, but when you're doing any form of art, you get lost in that and you're not looking at a watch to see what time it is. And it just, I'm trying to describe, it just brings everything down, sort of, you know, a calmness and leveler.
I have issues with challenges with sleep, and so I'm awake a lot through the night, and I can, instead of just lying or that, I can immerse myself in and feel quite calm, so I don't be distressed in this. Others are distressed the fact that I'm awake, and they know if I'm on Twitter and things like that. But now I'm more likely to lift my sketchbook or my crochet or something and just get immersed in that. So if I was in a care home and I was having my normal sleep challenged issues, I don't want to be medicated with night pills. I forget the name. I just want a corner where I can sit calmly with my cup of tea and lose myself, and go back to bed quietly when I'm ready. So I think in care homes there should be more creative ways of dealing with irritability, restlessness, sleep challenges, and that. And I think using creative ways in art is the way to go forward for Agnes, anyway.
And it's to do with unmet needs, and that's often what causes behaviour that is out of the normal, let's say, and therefore for a care home to be fluid and flexible and not strict to rules and expect all your residents to actually conform to someone else's regime is incredibly important. I think people should have the opportunity every day to do something that is artistic in some way. In any of the many arts that there are. But equally, it shouldn't always be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 11 o'clock in the morning. It should be, so you need, as Agnes just said, really, to have an area where people can just go in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, lunchtime, whatever, if that's what they want to do.
What creativity does as well, I think, is it connects people. And I was thinking in terms of my mother who had Alzheimer's and was in a care home, and the highlights of her day were when she was connected to other people. And sometimes that was through a craft or a creative activity. Could be music, could be trying to make something, trying to do a picture or something together. So it was this idea of connection and conversation, sharing, and then what we all do so well together, which is celebrating each other's creative achievements. And I think that's what I would wish a care home to really champion and practice.
Conversation, the bringing people together using a medium, a creative medium, evokes memories and stimulates conversation. So it could be if George was painting something and a memory is evoked when you're showing it, and they say, I remember when, or that reminds me of, and then you just get the conversations. It's absolutely amazing. Sticking a television on doesn't do it for me. In fact, I would have behaviour that challenges due to the hyperacoustics and various things like that. So I would definitely be sedated. What is it? The thing we call medical cosh, because everything in a care home would stimulate my sensory challenges,
It's to do very much with attitude of mind and getting the staff to be allowing the staff to get beyond the mechanics of caring.
So creativity is a bit like a muscle. It needs exercise, and that needs a bit of effort from the staff to encourage people and to support people to do that exercise.
You've got to remember also that the staff, often quite young, may not actually think that they're any good at art themselves. And they may be totally frightened of actually trying something, because they'll show themselves up as, where do I start? Don't know where to start. Well, in that case, maybe we could offer some little starter tutorials or whatever, Zoom sessions to staff, to give them the confidence to say, okay, you could done a little painting with us, do it with someone else now.
Not only are they using the brain muscle, but they're also using dexterity and things that are unusual, which is great, a great way, instead of doing physiotherapy or getting, you know, your arthritic fingers. I know there's more benefits, you know, and I'm sure people would sleep better, more relaxed, less medication for anxiety, etc.
If we can get it across to the staff, we can learn new things and look at what we've done and what you can do with them, as you said, by giving examples, then it's just changing people's minds and mindsets.
I would like Napa and care home owners to understand that their staff getting involved in art will make a huge, enormous difference to the care home, to the staff, to their attitude, to their positivity. You could change. It could become. It's a bit like, you know, you have sports academies and arts academies. You could have a care home that actually people were doing art all the time, whatever sort of form of arts, and the staff would love it because they'd be involved as well. They'd learn the enjoyment from it. It could be a magnificent thing to just let it blossom.
What a fabulous talking point.
Yeah.
Have visitors come to your care home. What a way of showcasing what you're seeking to achieve. You know, there's a lot of creativity goes into preparing food, and the vast majority of residents will have had some cooking experience or some food preparation experience. Everybody has that. And it's something we lose, I guess, when we're being catered for. And whilst being catered for is nice at times, it's also lovely, I guess, to be actively participating in that.
I think if the staff were trained to incorporate just ordinary, normal, everyday activities into the residents' lives, it would make a lot of difference.
Giving the staff permission, you know, to be creative when they're helping someone to dress or choosing their clothes and various things like that. It's bringing creativity, as you were saying, in everyday tasks.
We should be done with, not done to. And we should be people in their own homes, i.e. in care homes, just to make a point, should be encouraged to do as much around them and as part of normal days as possible.
So many care homes, the residents are either looking at the walls or looking at a television that no one's watching really. So, you know, there's not the stimulation there from the environment. And I've done some work with care homes with the gardens outside, and you know, there's a fabulous creative opportunity in the outside environment. And I said earlier that what creativity does for me is it makes me look at the world through different eyes, through my view, better eyes, more perceptive eyes. And if my world is a blank wall or a television screen, what am I going to get out of my life through staring at that? Creativity is one of the best tools and one of the best means that care homes have of channeling what they would term as being challenging behavior, often through person being frustrated rather than being challenging, or being bored rather than being challenging, or being lonely rather than being challenging, into something more creative.